America to be an actress. And she got involved in various bits of acting, but she really wanted to be an inventor. And she did invent a torpedo guidance system. And apparently that has led to, the technology that that's led to includes GPS and Bluetooth technology. So her legacy lives on through things that we do every single day with our mobile phone and things like that. So she was quite inspirational. Having invented her guidance torpedo system, she actually went back to acting. And she was a very, very good actress. The other one, I think America is put in here just to see whether I can actually speak any Chinese at all. Xing Sheng Wu. She was, I think, from Eastern China, and she did a lot of work on making certain that we could all understand physics, nuclear fission, splitting the atom, around about 50, 60, 70 years ago. And possibly even further ago than that. So those are two people. If you want to know more about some of the women, which includes Rosalind Franklin, DNA, there is a brilliant page on the UKRI website which talks to you about some of the female scientists who have actually had huge impact. And I think it's really important to remember that, alongside obviously the news yesterday of the death of Stephen Hawking. So, you know, there's some fantastic names and some fantastic discoveries that we celebrate. So, the other thing that's going on, Jasmine, the supercomputer data storage, it's been around for a while. It is hosted by STFC. It is funded by NERC, and I think the UK Space Agency, if I'm correct. It is going through an upgrade. I think it's Jasmine 4 is what we're up to now. And this allows us to do all sorts of analysis of climate models. It is a fantastic example of an infrastructure that we've actually got in this country, which allows people, scientists from around the world, to look at things. So there's quite a lot of work going on Jasmine at the moment, and that's just another example of where UKRI comes into its own with a piece of infrastructure which is really important. So you will also notice if you go through this, we've all got new pictures today. Everyone's in a new picture, and I'm going to hand over to the new picture of Anne.
Good morning, everyone. Yet again, this is the biggest audience I think we've seen of all time in here since the programme started, so thank you all very much for coming. I'm going to talk to you about how we're getting on towards day one, and also what happens after day one to a certain extent. And as you can see from the slide, somewhat to everyone's surprise, we are on track to go live. And not only that, the programme's actually under budget as well. So I think this is the time when I have to say thank you. As you know, this programme is made up totally of volunteers. There's 102 of you directly involved in the programme, and there's hundreds in the change programme. So this is all down to you that we've actually got to the wire in pretty good shape. Moving on to HR matters, hopefully you have all received your transfer letters. If you haven't received a transfer letter, please go and see your HR person. But so far we think we're in pretty good shape on that. The other thing that's now ready is some of you are starting to recruit people that might start after the 1st of April, and therefore you need to give them the new UKRI induction packs, which are now ready. So again, if you've got people in that situation that are joining you, talk to your HR person and they'll be able to point you to the induction packs that come along. And as you've probably seen from all our normal recruitment methods, we're starting to really pick up on filling roles now for the future. A lot of you are obviously applying for those roles, which is exactly what we wanted. So just keep looking out, every week, because there's a growing wave of new roles becoming available for you. So going on to governance, we're in pretty good shape on this too, in that there's a suite of key documents that BEIS need to issue to us in order for them to feel comfortable that we're being suitably governed. These are things like a framework document, which is a common document across government, and obviously delegated authorities, which need to go from BEIS to Mark, and then from Mark to our 9 chief executives. So they're all coming down the tubes pretty well. We've also agreed our reporting data So this is how we report upwards to BEIS on how we're doing. So we have a range of success measures which are obviously linked to our vision and to the strategic objectives, so that we make sure we're measuring that we're staying on track. The other governance piece, which was obviously a new piece of work, was the formation of Research England. Obviously didn't exist as an organisation before that, and also didn't bring over with it from HEFCE quite a lot of the corporate services that they need. So down in Bristol, that's all in hand. We have a head of corporate services down there, handling things like HR and finance. I'm actually going to go down there in the next few days and see how they're all getting on, but they seem pretty happy along the way. So on finance, your chief executives will have seen their 18-19 financial budgets. And then, as you all know, we're moving to operational expenditure, OPEX is usually called, which is what used to be admin plus the programme costs of delivering the programme. Things like hosting competition seminars, that sorts of things, working with your communities. So that has been done. And then moving into transformation, obviously as we finish the programme and move towards transformation, we have to hand over quite a lot of things. So the HR team and finance team are handing over all the work that they've done to the normal finance and HR team. So that work's very much ongoing at the moment, so that we sort of morph, seamlessly, we hope, into business as usual along the way. Talking about estates for a minute, the Polaris House UK offices are nearly ready, as you can see if you walk past. They'll be ready in time for us to all move in. There's 60 desks in there, and we'll be using the same principles that some of the councils already use, of clear desk policies, so that we can get as many people through those offices as so we maximise the efficiency of it all, really. And for the London office, which is the building at the top, we are hoping to move in late July, but as with all these things, we're dependent on contractors and fit out and IT and all sorts of other things. So I don't want to say hand on heart it's going to be there, because things could go wrong, but basically over the summer we're going to get on with that. And then we're going to also start working on what we call launch support, which can be called hypercare if you like. But these are all things we need to do to support the organisation in the first few weeks, hopefully not months, to make sure that you know what to do. And what we're going to have is bunches of people around this building and other buildings wearing specialist t-shirts, which they don't actually say, "Can I help you?" but they're rather like that. And special lanyards, and basically if there's anything that you're worried about, whether it's IT or HR or whatever else, grab one of those people and they'll be able to point you to the right person who can help you out. So for the first few weeks you'll see some of those wandering around. We do have multiple t-shirts for people, because they'll be wearing them for several weeks. But of course the work's not over yet, so we've still got some more to do. In terms of our assets, our UK and international assets, the things we own, we can't legally transfer those until the 1st of April, so that work has to be done after go live. We've got some good news on EU grants, in that things have gone much better in the right direction with the European Commission. It's looking likely we'll be able to transfer all our grants on block in one go. So that's looking much more promising. Very well done to BEIS colleagues for pulling that one off. Charitable tax status, we continue to talk to HMRC. And then obviously we've got more business as usual work, so equality, diversity and inclusion work, the 3-year plan. There's quite a lot of work going on behind the scenes on the 3-year plan, and when we can share things with you, we will be sharing them. But as you can imagine, there's a huge amount in it, and we want to get it right, and we also want to pace it so that we don't have bunches of too much work at any one time. So that is really truly in a planning mode at that point. And then we're going to move on to digital and technology. Luckily, I've got Nigel Townley with me to talk to you about this. And he's particularly going to tell you about the Greenfield Day 1 plan and also about what's going on with email. So, Nigel.
Thank you, Anne. Actually, I'm going to talk mostly about the move to ukri.org, because it's created an unbelievable amount of conversation and dialogue, it seems like, for the last 3 months, but I think it's actually been about 3 weeks. So first of all, I know that quite a few of you were concerned when it was first mooted that we'd be moving to a ukri.org domain, because we get various privileges by using .ac.uk or using .gov.uk. But Mark was very clear when he came on board that he wanted UKRI to be identified by the ukri.org domain, and that's what we're going to do. Now, the good news is that we think we're going to enable that without making a huge disruption for day one. And the requirement on day one is that when you interact with anyone outside the organisation, or they interact with you, Mark's very keen that you are identified as being part of UKRI. And there's two ways that we're going to do that. The first way is that at the moment most of you have a .ac.uk or a .gov.uk email address. That will continue, and that's where your mail will be, and that's where your mailbox is. But what we will create for day one is an email alias. So this is another email address that will be of the form first name dot last name at councilname.ukri.org, or if you're not a member of the council, you're part of the central corporate function, it would just be at ukri.org. And what that means is, from day one, you can tell people the new email address, and if they send you an email, you'll receive it in your existing mailbox. So that's the first very simple, low-impact change, and you don't have to do anything. That's going to happen behind the scenes, and we've been working very hard with all of the various IT teams. The other change we're going to make is to what's called the display name. So when you look at your email and you're in your inbox, what you see there typically is something quite friendly. It will say, email from Fred, blogs, and there may be some other information, but you don't actually see their email address in the inbox. And that is called the display name. And we can change that, again, without making any modifications to the email address. So we'll be doing that on day one as well. And we've agreed a very simple form for day one. We can change it later if we want to. But it will basically be first name, space last name, and then in brackets, UKRI, if you work in the centre or the strategy teams, or UKRI, comma, council name. And we're just keeping it real simple. Now, the other concern that was raised, certainly by a lot of people that work in the institutes and centres, is that they have their own brand that has very special meaning. So if you take British Atlantic Survey as an example, it would be quite disruptive if we suddenly changed that overnight. And so we've agreed a set of exemptions with Mark, mainly around organisations like that, where we're not going to make any changes to their domain for the foreseeable future. And so it's primarily sort of head office functions that will be adopting ukri.org. Now, that's not sufficient, so that's just to get us over day one, and I think you'll agree that's pretty low impact. We are on a journey, though, to move to ukri.org as our primary email address for everyone, subject to the comments I just made about exemptions. But that is not a quick process, because we've got a lot of operational systems that, rightly or wrongly, have a very tight integration with certain email addresses. And we need to unpick that with UKSBS and our other service providers to make sure that when we change, those systems carry on running. So it's primarily around Siebel and grants and single sign-on. That process will be complete within 6 months, but you will see change happening before then. So there are some functions that don't have that tight integration, and we can move to a primary email address change earlier, and we will do that. And we'll be working with those groups on an individual basis so that they know when the change is happening. So don't be surprised if you see some of your colleagues already on a ukri.org domain, in some cases on day one. So Research England, for instance, have ukri.org domains already, and some of the members of the private office and central teams will also have day one. But between now and sort of September, you'll see other groups of users moving over. I think that's about it. Feel free to send any questions through if you've got any concerns about this. One other thing that many people have raised with me is that we do get preference based on our email address for certain services. A lot of people maintain it's because of the .ac.uk or the .gov.uk suffix. In the couple of cases where I've tested that, is not actually the case. So academic discounts, for instance, from Microsoft, someone swore blind to me, that's because you've got a .ac.uk domain. When I asked Microsoft and asked to see the agreement, it's not mentioned at all. It's about the work that we do, and I'm hopeful that we can have that same conversation with other organisations. But if you have specific concerns about that, or moving away from your existing email address in the longer term, please send through a question, and I'll look at it. Great, thank you very much.
Thank you, Nigel. So if you have got questions, we'll have time for questions at the end as well, but do send them in. Right, so very quick canter through what's going to happen the first few weeks post the 1st of April. As you all know, Easter falls on the 1st of April. So the first day is actually the 3rd of April, Tuesday the 3rd of April, and I recognise a number of you are potentially going to be on holiday as well. You know, I've got kids at school as well, so I do realise it's the Easter holidays. But on the 3rd of April is the internal launch. Then in May there will be an external launch, and the external launch at the moment is subject to discussion as to what the date is, where we're talking to ministers as well to make certain we get all the right people. We are looking at a staff conference which is currently scheduled for the 7th of June for all staff conference. That is quite a big conference to bring everyone together and talk. And then, as Anne mentioned, the London office will need to be opened at some stage, and currently we're looking at towards the back end of July. But again, a date to be decided. So on the 3rd of April, what can you expect to see? Well, here you will find Mark, myself and Anne here in the morning. You asked for a cake, so there will be a cake. We will also be here to drop in sessions and just generally to be around. Mark and I will then go over to Bristol. And meanwhile, Rebecca and Ruth Elliott are going to be in London, both in Victoria Street and also, I think, going up to the MRC. There is obviously the council chairs will also be around. We haven't put them up, but they are still going to be around as well. What there will be is, I think Anne has already mentioned, there will be a welcome pack, a UKRI guy, a welcome video that was shot the other day. So that's all being produced. And then we're planning a series of visits during April, May, June to Harwell, to Southampton, to Daresbury, to Nottingham, to all of the locations that we're so everywhere that we can get to, we are looking to get there. And I'm particularly excited about that because actually there's a lot of places that I have not been to, and I'm really looking forward to trying to get out and about a little bit more. So those will all happen, and obviously, as I say again, the Research Council chairs will also be obviously going out there and doing that. The launch in May, we're looking for a high-profile launch of UKRI across the all press and the community and the public. So this is very much something that we want ministerial support on. We want to make certain there's loads of public-facing content, really understanding that the public understands research and development and values research and development. So we're looking at that, and as I say, that is targeted for mid-May. So more on that will come later. We haven't planned the June event yet, other than the date that I just told you, but it is planned to be an all-staff event. It's planned to be a large-scale event, and it plans to, as it says on the slide, to recognise the and celebrate the contribution of our people. And it is absolutely because of the over 7,000 people, and then all the people that we fund, obviously, across the entire research and innovation infrastructure. So it's a really important event. Branding, so there is, as you know, the UKRI interim brand, and that is the brand that we will be using on day one. So we will be looking to put the branding up, particularly on this building, I know. We will be using that branding, as Nigel has just talked about, UKRI brand on our website. There will be guidelines available for the use of that brand, and that will all come, I'm sure, through the comms team. And then we're looking for a long-term UKRI brand, but we're looking to make certain that that's a project that is done, you know, across the councils, across the whole of UKRI. So that will be launched in May with a view to that. So what you can expect to see, say, in April is quite a lot of activity. I'm aiming to be here quite a lot during April as well. So, you know, I'm hoping that people will really feel as though there is a bit of a change that happens, obviously, on the 3rd of April. For a number of people, it is sort of business as usual in terms of grants and things like that. But we also want to make certain it's not just business as usual, but we really have the impact of UKRI coming together. So that's what you can expect to see. Again, if there are questions, send them in and do that. I am going to hand over to Rebecca.
Hello, everyone. Can you all hear me? I've got a bit of a sore throat, so I'll try and be as clear as I can. So the comms team have done a fantastic job of planning all the launch and getting everything together, but one of the really big important things we're going to do when we launch the organisation publicly in May is to publish our first strategy. Now this is coming together. We're talking to all the councils and everyone who works on the strategy group and to our board about what we should contain in this first strategy, and I'm just going to float some ideas past you at the moment, and we'd be very, very interested in your thoughts and views about what we should contain in that first overarching UK research and innovation strategy. So the first thing is we always have is what are you trying to do? What we're thinking is that we want research and innovation to benefit everybody and to lead the world through knowledge, talent and ideas. And then there's 3 key elements to what we're trying to do. First is world-class knowledge, pushing the frontiers of human endeavour and understanding. That is the bedrock of everything we do, and without that we cannot create any impact. But we also do want to create impact. We want to deliver economic growth and social prosperity. We've been incredibly lucky in making the case to government and the Treasury that we should get more money. They've given us more money. It's been great. But we do need to deliver on our economic impact. But also we care about society. We care about helping use research and innovation to make people enriched, live longer, healthier lives, to make the environment more resilient and more sustainable, and to build on the cultural capabilities of society as a whole. We think that we've worked, the programme team did some fantastic work developing 4 key values in consultation with you, and we want to use them to also shape not only use them for ourselves, but also shape our external strategy, because we think they're very good. The 4 key values are collaboration. We will only deliver if we work in partnership with everybody in our communities. Innovation. We need to continue to improve. We need to learn from what doesn't work. We need to take risks. We need to be thinking about new ways of doing things. Integrity must underpin everything that we do. It is the reason why our innovation and research system is world-beating, is that everyone trusts it because it's very high quality. And then excellence as well. Without ensuring that we fund the very best research and innovation, we won't generate value for money. So we like those values. They were developed through you and with you in staff groups. Further thoughts about how we best explain those to our community would be really gratefully received. Then, in terms of what our vision looks like, we have our 3 blocks of economy, society and knowledge. Underpinning that we have to create the best possible environment for research and innovation. That's about making sure we have the best infrastructure. And STFC and the new Executive Chair, Mark Thompson, will be leading the work that's been going on in terms of developing the infrastructure roadmap. The system must be trusted and diverse, and we're doing a lot of work thinking about things like open access and making sure that we have the best possible policies there. We need to grow we need to grow talent, which means investing in the pipeline, but also means talking to colleagues across government about the need to make sure that we have the right numbers of people coming into our system with the right sort of skills. Increasingly we need more data analysts, we need more technicians, we need more people who can help manage research, and we need to think about the careers both within UK research and innovation but also in the broader community. And then Global Britain, as you know, over the next year there is going to be a lot of work to make sure that as we exit the UK we do it in the best possible way for science and innovation. Ministers are incredibly committed to that. It's something that the board regularly discuss, and it's something we really care about. So we need to make sure that we have in place arrangements for whether we're going to associate to Horizon 2020, etc. But we also need to work with our colleagues across the system on visas and make sure that they actually do work for our people. Next one, public engagement. Something we're all very, very keen to make sure that is absolutely top of UK Research and Innovation's priorities. We have come to an agreement with our colleagues in Bays that a lot of the work that they do on public engagement in terms of funding programmes like STEM ambassadors and science centres will actually come over to UK Research and Innovation. So we will be able to take those programmes, the programmes currently done in Research RC UK, and then think about how do we really get the public informed and excited about what we do. I know that all of you do some incredible work here. We're always open to new ideas and about ways in which we're doing. But I think it's really important that we do explain to people what we are doing, how it will change their lives, and we constantly have to make sure that we are always top of the government's priorities, and part of that is explaining just how important research and innovation is. Next one. When we're writing the strategy, one of the things that we want to do is to look for ways we can capture big ideas for the future. There's some examples here. This came from previous work from some of the research councils about what are the really important things going forward. I mean, obviously things like AI, materials, etc. A lot of this is underpinning what we're doing on the Industrial Strategy Challenge Fund at the moment, but I'd be really interested in your ideas about new technology, services and opportunities. What are the things we should highlight? We plan to publish the strategy in mid-May to help launch the organisation, and it will be very high level, because that will then kick off a process where each individual council will then work extensively with your community over 2018 in order to produce what the Act describes as strategic delivery plans. We want to give you a fairly long time period to do that, because we appreciate that consulting with your communities is absolutely essential. We've been talking about this with the executive chairs and with the strategy subgroup, and that will also get us into a very good place for 2019, when the thing that was likely to happen in 2019 is we can expect the next big spending review. So what we really want to do is to go and get ourselves in an incredibly good position to go into that process. And one of the reasons why we... Sorry, move around next one. One of the reasons why we really, really care about that is one of the things that we're working very close with our BEIGS colleagues is the government's commitment to increase spending on R&D to 2.4% by over the next 10 years. This is absolutely critical for us, and it's not just the money targets that's really important. It's much more about how do we actually achieve those outcomes. The themes we're working on at the moment as part of the industrial strategy, but also with colleagues all across government, is how do you transform sectors? How do you actually increase the capability of industry to invest in R&D as well as the public sector? How do we make the UK the top international destination for the top class innovators and researchers? We need to create a country of innovators. We need to think about what it looks like in all different parts of the country. So that is a big priority for us for the next year. Okay, so the key questions for you, but please do, I think we're going to open up for a whole range of questions now across all the presentations. But on the strategy, you know, we are writing it in real time. We're really interested in what sorts of things you would like to see. Have we missed anything? We will be putting it to bed over the next month, because I said we are, when we do our launch event in mid-May, we will want to publish the strategy. So now is the best time you can, that there is to influence that. Okay? So I'm going to...
That's fantastic. Thank you. So the next, before we go on to GDPR, as Rebecca just mentioned, it might be just worthwhile just pausing for a couple of questions, because there's been a lot of content come up in the last last half hour or so. Some of the questions have come in on my iPad, include things like, you know, what email address are the shared capabilities going to have? And I think when Nigel mentioned the word centre, what did he mean by centre? So do you want to take that, Nigel?
So I have to worry a bit about terminology, but by centre, the easiest way to think about it is if you're in a non-council role, so it might be a shared capability role, something like that, that would move to the centre. Unfortunately, it sort of conjures up a picture of the Death Star to me. It's probably not a good term to use. But anyway, that's what I mean by the centre. And there's a question related to email addresses. So if you're in a shared capability that would not be aligned to a council, then your email address obviously would not have a council. So it would be first name, last name, @ukri.org. Are the two questions? Yeah. Thanks.
And then I've also had a question, which is why have a London centre in Blackfriars? It's not very convenient for Swindon or Bristol. The reason we've chosen Blackfriars is that actually there's two things. Number one, we need a London centre because there are a number of people who need to be close to bays, to ministers. So that's why we need a centre. We also have the MRC based in London, some of them based in London in Kemble Street, the lease of which is coming to an end in 2019. So there was a congruence, if you like, of two things happening. A lot of shoe leather was worn out walking around London, I believe, to find a location, and the best location identified, which we could also get approved by the government's property agency, was actually in Blackfriars, and that's a combination of location to Westminster, location to the MRC currently, and also affordability. So that is why it's Blackfriars. That was the best location that we could come up with. I can assure you somebody did look at a building which was right on Paddington Station, but I know what the rent is on that building, and it wasn't something we were going to get approved. So that's where that is. There's also been a question around, you know, there's no reference to staff in the values. There is lots of reference, I know, in other places to staff. I can assure you staff are absolutely the bedrock of this organisation. And if it's not referenced there, it's because it's referenced elsewhere. But please, you know, you have my assurance that the role of the staff is completely understood and is something that I'm completely passionate about making certain we push forward. So those are coming on Slido. Any questions from the room? And there are mics around. Otherwise, you're going to get GDPR. Yeah.
Hi, I just wanted to ask about the shared capabilities, as we haven't heard about them for a while. I mean, not just international, but some of the other ones that were planned.
Okay. So we are, so obviously international under Andrew Thompson is a work in progress. We are doing quite a lot of work already on the infrastructure that I think Rebecca mentioned under Brian Bauscher at the moment, and Bryony Butland is doing that work. That was actually launched by the Minister, Minister Giemer, in about his 4th or 5th day in office, wasn't it, Rebecca? I think that was launched as being a piece of work that we're doing. That will take around about a year to complete, to map the infrastructure that we have in this country of all assets. So it's all the assets, both, you know, physical sort of buildings right the way through to collections and all sorts of other assets. There is work that Jennifer Rubin is starting to take up on equality, diversity and inclusion. So she's starting to think about that work and where that moves to. And then David Sweeney is starting to do quite a lot of work on the place agenda. And one of the things we haven't mentioned this morning is, we must remember as well that Northern Ireland, Wales and Scotland are very much within our thinking as well within UKRI. So, we are also, I think I mentioned some places we were going to visit. I didn't mention the fact that we are also going to go up to Scotland. There is a board meeting planned for Scotland, but there are obviously things there. So that's a fourth. So I think what we could do is bring back to you at a future session some more about infrastructure, not about infrastructure, about the shared capabilities. And I'd also love to get the research chair who's looking after each area to come and talk about that. So we'll pick that up as a future thing. But they are underway. Well, why don't we go on to GDPR, and then there's time for questions as well at the end. So it's a pleasure to introduce Simon, who's going to come and talk about GDPR, which does affect all our lives.
Thank you, Ian. Morning, everybody. So GDPR. In May, across Europe, the new General Data Protection Regulation will become law. It's not a wholesale change to data protection, so you'll be used to the Data Protection Act and the way that you go about your daily activities concerning personal data. But it does give some tweaks, and it gives much more control to the data subjects, to you and to the people out there that are sharing their personal data with us. In addition, it does squarely put the onus on organisations to document and evidence how we are compliant. Previously, it was up to the ICO, the Information Commissioner's Office, to prove that we were non-compliant. Now it's up to us to prove that we are compliant. So organisations also have to provide much more detailed information to people when they're sharing data with us. It does mean a big shift towards documenting and risk assessing all our data processing activities. So across the board, within the organisations, we're going to be sending out communications to help you do this. And we do suggest that you start off by listing all your activities that involve personal data. Understand why you're processing the data, and determine how long you need to, what the requirement is for storing the data. And from that, we can help you, and we'll provide guidance for bringing it on into privacy notices and impact assessments. So the new regulation was announced 2 years ago, and in December 2016 a cross-council compliance project was formalised to understand how GDPR would affect the business. Compliance is not just about the 25th of May when it becomes law, it's about an ongoing process, and this is called privacy by design and by default. It's going to take us many months to get through the compliance of all of our activities and systems, but the ICO do recognise this, and this is why it is important that we put plans in place now to show how we're going towards compliance. The project has created various guidance notes, and during the course of the next few months we're going to be sharing those with you to help you do this within your departments. Additionally, within the research councils, you will have a nominated data protection expert that will help to provide you with advice surrounding all the activities and processes that you're performing on a daily basis. And lastly, very soon we'll be rolling out a general GDPR awareness training for all staff online to help raise the awareness about GDPR. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. There are a few questions that have come in on things like flexible time, I think flexible working, flexible time, around role matching. I could probably talk for a long time about some of these, but actually I think what we'd rather do is to really come up with a very crisp set of questions and answers for you. More than happy to take questions, but you know, I think there's a number of you who want to know things, so to me it would be best if we actually produced the Q&As to really answer that. I am very, very aware that actually this change is, you know, it affects all of us, and it is about, you know, I moved to a new organisation, how does it affect me? And, you know, the message particularly is that, you know, all your current terms and conditions stay as you move into UKRI, and there is a programme of work we have to do as we transform around the harmonisation to get us all to the right place. So it's a big piece of work, and it's a piece of work that will be undertaken with a great deal of diligence, and I'm delighted that somebody like John Arnott's coming on board as our Chief People Officer to help to lead that with a lot of consultation. So I'm happy to take that. Are there anything else that's come up today that people want to ask about, or yep, down here, Briley.
Sorry, research councils have always prided themselves, research councils, the centres and institutes, have prided themselves on their independence from government. I'm just wondering, with the change to the new organisation, the .org, bringing people from Bays and so on, will we still be seen to be and be independent from government?
So I think constitutionally the research councils and Innovate were non-departmental public body. We will still be a non-departmental public body, so we will still be arm's length from government. I think what is different is that we now will have a very strong independent board that actually covers all of the research councils. Our advice to ministers will be routed through that board, and it will be independent. And I think that gives us a real opportunity. I think as well as when we think about independence, it is very important that we protect our independence for some really good reasons, not least the Haldane principle. In order to get the best quality science and innovation, we need to fund it to the very best projects, and actually you know, we need to, you know, the best people to do that are the research councils and the peer review and Innovate and the quality assessments that they use, and that is something that Mark, John and the board are absolutely committed to, because that is how you get value for money. I would say that actually when you think about independence, that's why we're independent, that's why we want to be arm's length from government, because we want to get the best possible science and innovation. It's not independence because we need to be independent, it's independence because it's really important. But independence is not the same thing as isolation. So I think, you know, we don't want to be in a position where we don't talk to government. We need to talk to government, we need to understand what their issues are, we need to understand what they're interested in, etc. So we need to preserve our independence, but not so far to the point that we don't talk to them, because they are our closest allies and we need to understand where they're coming from.
Any others? Good. Well, look, thank you for coming. There's one extra thing to remind you, which is that there is a Pulse survey live at the moment. The closing deadline for that is tomorrow. I think that when Marikian looked at a few days ago, we had about 400 or 500 people had filled it in. I'm sure it's gone up a little bit since then. Hopefully your research council chairs have potentially sent you a little reminder about it, but please do fill it in. It is important to us that we have a really, really good idea of where people feel they are at the moment, so do that. There's a drop-in session to follow this here. I just want to say an enormous thank you to all of you. We are so close to the 1st of April now. There's been a huge amount of work that's been put in, I know, across the board by people who have come specifically to work on the programme, but I also know within individual councils you've been doing work, and it is not unappreciated, I can promise you. So a huge thank you. We will celebrate on the 3rd of April as we launch, because I think this is a really, really big and exciting opportunity that we've been given. and it picks up a number of things that Rebecca's talked about. So please thank you to you. Thank you to all those who are watching on the live stream, because you're just as important as anybody who is standing here today. And thank you, if you can pass a thank you to anyone who wasn't able to get here today. Please, do just cascade down, because I know we can't always get everyone into here, but it is much appreciated from all of us, from the leadership, what you have done. And we look forward to working with you and learning more from you as we go forward. So have a great day, and look forward to seeing you in the UKRI world in a few weeks' time. Thank you.